Hello and welcome. On behalf of the Saskatoon Industry Education Council, we welcome you to our Career Pathways panel. I want to take this opportunity to thank RBC Future Launch for helping to power our Spotlight on Careers event. We acknowledge we are on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. And I want to welcome students, parents, and teachers from across Saskatchewan joining us today. As a registered nonprofit organization, the SIEC works in partnership with 3 school divisions and the Saskatoon Tribal Council, as well as community-based organizations, government agencies, and employers to help nurture the workforce of tomorrow. Last year, we worked with over 30,000 youth, over 3,300 business and post-secondary representatives, and more than 4,500 educators and career practitioners. The IEC hosts over 40 events and programs every year, including our skills boot camps, which provide students with a hands-on experience in various careers. Our Spotlight on Careers, which is a series of targeted events such as this that provides students with experiential learning opportunities. Connected, our Women Mentorship Program, connecting females in grades 10 to 12 with mentors from a wide variety of sectors in Saskatoon. And our Summer Youth Internship Program, which is a 6-week paid internship where students gain work experience in construction, manufacturing, automotive, and culinary industries. And students also have the opportunity to not only earn competitive wages, but also high school credit. So be sure to visit our website or follow us on our socials to stay up to date. And if you're not sure what you want to do after high school, we highly recommend attending a few of our events to discover what's involved with various career options. I want to take this opportunity to thank our panelists for joining us and sharing their stories with us today. And I want to encourage everyone tuning in to utilize the Q&A function and ask any questions you may have of the panelists. So if it's just a general question, you can throw it in the Q&A. And if it's for a particular panelist, you could include who you want to address that question to. So I am going to start with our panelists. And first up, we have Stephanie Clovechok. Stephanie was born and raised in the Canadian Rockies. Stephanie is committed to driving economic and social prosperity through the lens of the visitor economy. As the CEO of Tourism Saskatoon, she believes that the tourism industry is a force for economic opportunity for all within the means of the planet. Receiving her degree in communications and leisure and tourism from the University of Calgary in 2004, Steph cut her teeth in the tourism industry, guiding over 150 tours through the Canadian Rockies, Alaska, and Eastern Canada. Her passion for travel is accompanied by one for health and wellness. Studying Chinese medicine and holistic wellness on Vancouver Island led Stephanie to open her own wellness practice in Calgary, Alberta in 2007, which transformed into ownership of her own coffee shop and wellness cafe in Fairmont Springs, British Columbia. So please welcome Stephanie.
Thank you, Michelle, and hi, everyone. Such an honor to be here, and we'll just reaffirm that I'm very grateful to be joining you here today in Treaty 6 territory, the homeland of the Métis. I'm coming to you today from the Alt Hotel and just overlooking our beautiful South Saskatchewan River. I feel very, very privileged to be in this community, and as somebody who comes from the Canadian Rockies and mountainous regions, when I moved here in 2017, many of my colleagues and many of my family members were quite surprised that I would be leaving the Rockies and moving to the prairies. And that's really where I want to start this conversation, is the potentiality that lives in every destination, no matter where you are and no matter what the natural surrounding areas are like. So first and foremost, I'd just like to further introduce myself and help you understand where I come from. I was born in Calgary, Alberta, raised between southern Alberta and the eastern Kootenays of British Columbia. And I think that I've always been very light-footed, is how I like to describe the way that I've conducted myself in my life and in my career. I was raised by a family in southern Alberta in the Piikani Nation, which is a part of the Blackfoot Confederacy. and also raised by family in Calgary, and as I mentioned, in the East Kootenays of Alberta. I was very fortunate to be steeped in Indigenous cultural heritage, in storytelling, and to be very connected to my natural surroundings, and I think that's probably what has inspired me to continue to work in tourism today. Very early on, my birth father, ran a tour company that guided tours through Canada and up into Alaska, and we worked to fill cruise ships that were traveling up to Alaska. So on a regular basis, we were welcoming travelers from mostly the UK and Europe into Calgary. We would put them on tour buses, we would guide them through the Canadian Rockies, up through Vancouver and Seattle, and then up into Alaska. I was 17 years old when I got a phone call from my father saying, I have no tour directors. I have 8 buses on the road right now. One of my tour guides is sick, and I need you to pack your bags and get to Banff as soon as possible. Your mom is coming to pick you up and she'll drive you. At that point in my life, I was on a regular basis, just in university. It was my first year of university at the University of Calgary. It was summertime. I was probably hanging out at a friend's house, and I looked like I belonged at a skate park. And so I was driven to Banff by my mother. I was quickly taken on a shopping trip by one of my colleagues to look more appropriate in front of a busload of 54 British folks who had saved their entire lives to come and see the Canadian Rockies. And the next morning, I remember sitting in front of them, in front of the Banff Springs Hotel, as we were making our way from Banff to Lake Louise that day, wondering what the heck I was going to do with them all and what I was going to say. And so I had a script. It was in my head. I was raised by somebody who implemented that script in my head every day. There was mountains to look at. There was elevations of those mountains to be talked about. We could talk about the reasons that the water looked turquoise and why bears hibernate. And as I started to ramble off that narrative, as we made our way to our first stop of the day, I realized that everyone was looking at me with very glassy eyes, and that, these stories weren't necessarily impacting them in any way. And so the first spot that we stopped at for the day was Bow Falls. Some of you may have been there before. It's a beautiful spot right within Banff National Park and in the town site of Banff. And I was talking about movies that had been filmed there, and oh, could you imagine going down these rapids on a raft? And again, a very glassy stare looked back at me. And it struck me in that moment, the responsibility that I had as a storyteller to people who had arrived from all the way around the world to my backyard, and that I was responsible for immersing them in the stories of this destination, and that nothing that I was telling them was at all impacting the way that they perceived Canada, they understood our people, or that they understood our culture. And so from that moment on, I really have assumed the responsibility of not only transforming and enabling perception and perspective in people who come and visit us here in Canada, but also for the people who live here. And so I started to tell stories in my own way and in the way that I was raised in, and helping people to understand that the river has a spirit, and that the flowers and that the animals are gifting us with their presence. And that really started to change the way that people experienced my tours. And so instead of just getting off the bus and going to take pictures of a mountain or pictures of a river or a lake and say, yeah, I went to this place, they were starting to interact with the natural landscapes, and they were starting to interact with individuals, and they were wanting to immerse themselves in the local community rather than just saying, yeah, I went on this trip and I went to see all these places, ticked the box and carried on, hung the picture maybe on their mantle when they got home. And so that's really why and where I come from in the tourism sector. And even today, when people hear that I work with Tourism Saskatoon, it's misunderstood what we do. Does that mean that I book people on trips to Mexico from Saskatoon? That's a very common perception of what I do. And that's definitely not what we do when we work in tourism. And effectively, we are the destination management organization of this community. We work to build business into the community by hosting events like the Junos, for example. We host business events, sporting events. The Canadian curling trials were just here, and that was a direct result of the work that my team does. But we are also responsible for unearthing the most authentic experiences and storytellers in this destination, so we continue to deepen people's understanding of who we are what we are and why we're all here in relation to the natural environment that we live within. So, really, I think that the industry that we work in is such an inspired one and one of great impact when it comes to the economy, but also the social well-being of the community. And I think that that's probably marked some of my greatest struggles and challenges and opportunities along the way, is helping people to truly understand the nature of our work and the impact of our work. When I've worked closely in organizations like Tourism Saskatoon. Prior to this, I was working with Travel Alberta, which is the provincial management and marketing organization in Alberta. We work very closely with government. And as you can imagine, tourism is oftentimes seen as the ministry of fun. So it's like, okay, yeah, you guys get to build all these cool events and welcome people into our communities and create beautiful marketing campaigns, but do you really impact the economy like oil and gas or like mining or like forestry? And so some of the greatest challenges and struggles that I've met have equally been some of my greatest opportunities in communicating the benefit and the true impact of this sector and ensuring that our government, both municipally, provincially, and federally, all see and understand the impact of the visitor economy. What a day in the life of my role looks like today is quite different than what it would have looked like pre-pandemic. Our business is really divided into a few different departments and the way that we operate. First and foremost would be our marketing communications teams, who are seeking out the unique stories to be told from our destination, whether it be from Canada's top chef, or the fact that some of our restaurants are being named as Canada's top restaurants, whether it be the amazing experiences that are being offered, or some of the unique stories that are being told, even right down to the fact that Saskatoon is kind of ground zero right now for truth and reconciliation. And I'll speak a little bit more to that in a minute. But a day in the life for me in the pandemic right now is still very much survival. Our funding solely relies on people staying in hotels. And without that, our challenge to keep our own doors open and to keep my own staff employed has been great. And so a day in my life right now is continued advocacy for the importance of our industry, and that tourism is actually an industry of many industries. And when tourism works, everybody works. When we have business events that are being hosted here, we've got human capital entering the province. We have interest in investment in our province and interest in people moving to live and work here. That's really a result of tourism's successful work. When we have the development of youth sports that are hosting provincial tournaments, or having things like FIBA 3-on-3, an international basketball tournament right in downtown Saskatoon, those are all of the direct impacts that we have in our work. But even beyond that is the day-to-day work that we're doing with partners. And in today's day and age, especially now that Canada has been awoken to truth and reconciliation and the need for Indigenous inclusion, that is a big part of my day-to-day in helping people in our business community understand that we have a role to play. Tourism has a very important role to play in truth and reconciliation, specifically as it relates to 3 calls to action. And number 92 would be one that I can easily focus on in providing economic opportunity. So in every event that we host, in every meeting that we have online or in person, we're working to help showcase that, when it comes to a land acknowledgement or inclusion, we don't actually do that as a tourism organization, and that we make sure that one of Saskatoon's Indigenous or Métis community members are working alongside of us so that their access to the economy is successful. So what I love about my career is literally in my bones. I walked into this hotel last night and I felt at home. I feel at home when I am light-footed and when I'm inspired by meeting new people, hearing new stories. But most of all, I love most about my role here in Saskatoon is that we get to change people's perception of us and of this place and of the prairies. Moving to Saskatoon, I didn't know very much about this community, but I knew that there's something very special here, and it comes down to our people. I know that there is a perception of Canadians that there's not a whole lot to do on this flat and barren prairie, but many people don't realize what a diverse and varied landscape that we have in Saskatoon. And I love changing people's perception of this place in that manner. I also love that we are going to be having a huge hand in the collective healing of the trauma that has happened through the pandemic, and that tourism's sole role is to connect people and to bring people home to themselves and each other. And so through in-person connection, we have the ability to really heal a lot of what's happened through the pandemic. And so I think that, you know, with that, a lot of our job-related challenges are pandemic-induced right now. A lot of job-related challenges that we have also are competing with other destinations that have larger budgets than us or who have greater awareness than us. You know, I've traveled the world on behalf of this city and have people ask me questions like, what is a Saskatoon? So it's really important that we continue to share our story and that we continue to bring the good word of what's going on here in Saskatoon and what a powerful and impactful community we have, a powerful and impactful experience that we have to offer to travelers, and to make sure that Saskatoon stakes its claim on the global map, and that when people think of Canada, it's not just the Rockies, it's not just Niagara Falls, but people start to think about Saskatchewan and specifically Saskatoon as a destination that they can't go without traveling to. So with that, I think that covers off all of what I came here to chat with you about, and looking forward to any questions or comments.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and sharing a little bit of insight into what your career looks like and what a career in tourism actually entails. It's so funny when there's misconceptions about what someone's role actually is. And I will never ask you if you book trips from Saskatoon, but that's very funny that people assume that might be what your role actually is. So you talked about how your roles at Tourism Saskatoon have changed because of COVID. What has happened to the tourism industry because of COVID? Like, we know people aren't necessarily traveling and coming here. How has that impacted the tourism industry, and what have you guys done to try to help that, and what can we as a community do to try to help that?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Michelle. What happened in the onset of the pandemic, I think, became really well known when the Junos were canceled. We were a day away from welcoming all of this country's finest musicians and the music community. The stage was set, our hotels were ready. So the greatest impact is simply that. And I think that, you know, even just this month, our hotels continue to receive cancellation after cancellation of meeting, of, you know, small to medium to large conferences. And so the impact isn't just on the cancellations on the hotels, it's on all of the individuals who are working on those projects. It's of all the staff that are constantly being told to stand down or continue to be on, you know, a layoff notice. The impacts that the tourism sector has in a community are the obvious ones. Direct, okay, people are staying in hotels, people are eating in restaurants. Indirect are, you know, grocery shopping, small and medium enterprises who are able to build partnerships. Tourism Saskatoon's ability to work with local providers to create gift boxes for all of the delegates coming to those meetings. The massive spin-off effects of our industry are really going unseen, but the continued impacts of, you know, people not attending conferences, people not eating in our local restaurants, that affects our supply chain, that affects our ability, our employment rate. But more than anything, it's affecting our spirit. It's affecting people's ability to tell their stories. You know, this is wonderful to connect in a virtual format like this, and it's really been so great for us to continue to stay connected in this way. But a true impact of connection is really felt when we're able to be connected together. And so I think what we're challenging with is a strong sense of businesses recovery, but that does not match consumer confidence. And so, you know, it does not match people's certainty of whether or not it's safe to travel or meet in person again. And so one of our biggest messages and what we've done is created the Saskatoon community commitment. And within the word community, the word unity is highlighted in that we provide access to every single one of our 400 members and all 25 of our hotel partners to an occupational health and safety consultant on a day-to-day basis. So to make sure that all of the internal controls that we can have that are possible to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 are in place for every event, everything that's going on in the community. And to respond to that, the one question that I just saw in the question box, I absolutely have traveled from the pandemic's onset to this moment. And it's why I'm in this hotel right now, and why I write a bi-weekly blog to help people understand that it is still safe to be out and about in the community. And we have a personal responsibility to take when it comes to the pandemic and conducting ourselves in a specific way. And I tell my kids all the time, you can keep your distance and you can wear a mask, but, don't go around licking hand posts and, like sneezing on people. There's some common sense to be had during this. I've been on airplanes throughout the entire pandemic. I have traveled transborder throughout the entire pandemic, and have done so taking great responsibility for my health and well-being, making sure that I institute a healthy lifestyle, that I am, again, taking personal responsibility for my health, because my role and my industry relies upon that. And so that goes for my mental well-being, my spiritual well-being, and my physical well-being as well. But yes, we believe here within my team anyway, that we have a role and a responsibility to show some leadership and continue to travel.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. And if anyone does have any other questions for Stephanie about her role, please be sure to put that in the Q&A and we can address those later on in our session. So I am going to introduce our next panelist. So up next, we have Aimee Schneider. So Aimee was born and raised in Saskatoon and graduated from Evan Hardy Collegiate. Most of her education came from watching her hardworking family and the other small business owners she worked for growing up. Aimee owns Unveiled Dress Co., a local bridal boutique, and The Dress Co. by Unveiled, a formal wear specialty shop where she leads a small team of women in the ultimate goal of making people feel beautiful and confident, all while supporting as many other local businesses as possible. Aimee is also involved in our community, donating her time to multiple organizations, which has earned her a National Philanthropy Award. So please welcome Aimee.
Hi guys, thanks so much for having me. First and foremost, I just want to thank Stephanie for everything that you do, and to have you sort of lead tourism for Saskatoon. I mean, your passion comes through, and I think I can speak on behalf of all of the panelists that what you do actually helps all of our businesses. So I may not have the same story that Stephanie had, and be able to say that I kind of, grew up in beautiful places like she did, and she's bringing people to Saskatoon. But I grew up here, and I'm very proud of our community, and I'm very proud of who Saskatoon is and what we are doing and growing. And I've sort of loved to see Saskatoon grow. I feel like when I was younger, it felt like a very small town, and we're starting to kind of feel a little bit more big city, which is exciting. But we still kind of have our small town grassroots. So who am I, and what do I do every day? So I'm an entrepreneur. And I feel like a lot of people are sort of born with the entrepreneurial spirit. It's definitely ingrained in me. That's who my parents were, and what they did, and what I saw them do as I grew up. And I think I kind of always knew that I wanted to create something. I wanted to do something that came from my heart and was something that I was very passionate about. And I didn't feel like I could do that working for somebody else, because I feel like you're working for someone else's passions. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like it stifles somebody with the entrepreneurial spirit. And so how did I get here? It's kind of an interesting story. I wanted to be a doctor. I thought that I wanted to do something that was very meaningful. So when I went to school, I was taking science courses. And that felt like something that was going to be meaningful, but it never felt like it was going to be the end game. I always wanted to do something for myself, but I felt like I needed to do something first to get there. And I didn't actually end up finishing my degree. So actually how I know Michelle, I worked in a bar. I worked for a locally owned pub here in Saskatoon. I met Michelle outside of that, but the owner of the bar that I worked in asked me one day, he's like, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, I think one day I want to own a bridal store. And it just sort of came out of my mouth. My girlfriend's sister owned one at the time, and I had worked a little bit part-time for her. And And when I said it to him, he was like, yeah, whatever. Like, you can sell to anybody. Like, maybe one day that's what you're going to do. And it sort of ended. That was the conversation. And it was kind of always a passion of mine, because I really loved making the women feel beautiful when I got to help my girlfriend out in her boutique. And it was a very passionate career. It was very fun. It was very hands-on, and you got to really kind of see the impact right then and there. And come full circle. So 10 years later, I was in a different career. I was working in real estate, and the owner of the bar that I was working for called me up one day, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to have dinner tonight?" I was like, "Yep, let's do it. It's been a long time. Let's catch up." And he laid out these papers in front of me and was like, "Look, I've been trying to buy this building for quite some time. And the woman who owns the building also owns the store within the building, and it's a bridal boutique, and she won't sell them separately. If we're going to do this real estate transaction, it needs to come as one. And I know nothing about owning a bridal store. And I remember one Saturday night, 10 years ago, you said you wanted to do this." And he's like, "Why don't we do this right now?" And I feel like when that opportunity knocked, it wasn't a door I could close. I knew it was something that I wanted to do. It was definitely like kind of far down in my future. And I signed the papers right then and there. It was a 15-minute conversation. There wasn't a lot of thought that went into it. It was just one of those, when opportunity knocks, you take it. And so 8 years later, here we are. I bought that existing bridal boutique and sort of worked with him as a partner, and then ended up buying him out when it became more feasible for myself. And then we grew, and I grew, and I bought another boutique, and decided that I was going to kind of combine these two things and be able to sort of like continue to grow this passion and be able to involve more women, because bridal is obviously very dedicated to just brides, just people getting married. And we wanted to kind of have a more open, I didn't want it to just be bridal. I wanted to continue to grow, and another opportunity presented itself. So when we had the opportunity to grow into the Dress Co and Unveiled, and kind of combine forces and create this formal wear sort of, we call it the one-stop shop for anything formal. So we are your party dress headquarters. You can come and get a dress for any occasion kind of under our roof, right from First Communion and Flower Girls up to the bridal prom event dresses, your dress that you're going to wear to any of those beautiful events that Stephanie was talking about that come to Saskatoon, to your everyday dresses. And so that's sort of what I do. And a day in the life is, I think the biggest thing that I didn't think I was going to feel so rewarded by was going to be the women that I get to lead. And I say women, I have had men work for me before, but it is definitely more of a female endeavor. Sort of, most of the people that have worked for me have been women. But leading that team and watching these young women grow, and I feel very responsible for who I'm developing, because a lot of the people that I get to lead in my industry are younger and are, university students, high school students, and they're growing and they're learning. And I want to give them the same education that I got working in this community, working for entrepreneurs in this community, and the passion that's there and the lessons that sort of get learned. I feel like a lot of who I am came from those people and the experiences that I had kind of growing up and working, and the connections that I made sort of growing up. So there's a lot to be said for working for the passionate people of our community, and the lessons that you can sort of learn even from, your part-time job in high school. Those are the people that you're meeting, and the connections that you're getting through all of that are going to lead you through your life. And those are very invaluable lessons, sort of in community and in sort of developing connections and relationships with these people, because they do come full circle, and these are the same people that are going to support you later in life when and if you do something on your own as an entrepreneur. So doing something that you're passionate about, but learning from those around you is something that I can highly recommend to any and all of you as you kind of go out into the workforce. Take all of those little lessons that you learn from the people as you kind of go, and all of that is education as well. Grow, learn from every inspirational moment, even from the smallest little thing in your community, in your world around you, and use that to sort of develop your dreams and your passions, and don't be afraid to speak them. Like I said, it was a one-off conversation that I had, and I just happened to have it with the right person. And I told him that one day I was going to be a bridal shop owner, and that opportunity presented itself because I said that goal out loud. And here we are. I own a bridal shop 8 years in. I love it every single day. And it's something I'm very, very passionate about. And I'm happy that my position and the growth that my business has been able to sort of give back to the community. And it's something I'm very proud of, and I'm very proud to be part of Saskatoon. So I think that's probably everything, Michelle. If you want to throw some questions at me, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. As people talk, I always write down little notes, and just so many things that you talked about are what we strive to do at the SIEC. And we always say that we want to help students find their passion and turn it into a career. And that's clearly what you were able to do, and create a business and create a community that you're proud to be part of. And I also loved how you talked about the different experiences you've had and the lessons you've learned, and how that's helped to shape who you are and who you are as an entrepreneur and a business person. I am a believer that there is no such thing as a waste of education. So the years of university you took, whether it resulted in a degree or not, it still shaped who you are. It taught you things that helped you along the way. And it's awesome that I'm sure your background in real estate also helps with your salesmanship or saleswomanship.
Yeah, a little bit.
So clearly you have some talent in that area. But thank you so much for joining us. Once again, if anyone has any other questions for Aimee, you can throw it into the Q&A, and we are going to move on to our third panelist. So up next, we have Jordan Boyd. He has been a realtor in Saskatoon since 2010, where he became the top producer in his company within 3 years. In 2015, he went out on his own and formed Boyd Group Realty, Inc. They now operate in Saskatoon with offices in Regina and Battleford, and have almost grown to 100 agents and staff in 7 years. Jordan also works as a real estate coach throughout Canada. Boyd Group is fully licensed in residential, farm, commercial, and property management. So please welcome Jordan.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I had my video blocked there, so.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Thank you very much for the introduction, and welcome everybody. And thank you to the two previous speakers. I always find it interesting to learn about other people's journey through this, I guess, entrepreneurship and what you've experienced as well. And I mean, we can always learn from each other. So I think that's great. And thank you guys for sharing that. And Aimee, I think I know a little bit about your story with those buildings and stuff just through the grapevine. So it's great to see where you are now. So yeah, like Michelle said, I own and operate Boyd Group Realty here in Saskatoon is our main location. We are a fully independent brokerage. So I guess my journey started, and this is gonna be a bit of a weird story. So I'm from a town of 800 people. Grew up on a farm in Kelvington, which is about 2.5 hours east of here. And for whatever reason, whether I was, stubborn at the time, I just was dead set in my ways of I'm not going to university off the bat. So I started working in the city at Federated Co-op. When I was 17, I left home right after I graduated. So one day I met a guy there and he was quitting, and I asked, well, why are you leaving the job here? And I still wasn't really thinking about my future too much. And he's like, well, I'm making more money playing poker at home, so I'm going to become a professional poker player. Well, lo and behold, 3 months later, I quit. And from the time I was around 19 till 24, I played poker online, Vegas, LA. That's all I did for a living. Then one day logged into our accounts and the FBI had seized all of the accounts from the Americans because it was illegal. They were playing in offshore accounts. We were still allowed to play in Canada, but now all the players were gone. So I'm 24, no education, didn't know what to do. And one day, and I mean, despite what you might think of the guy now, and I'm not here to debate that, I saw the show The Apprentice on TV where Donald Trump was hosting, and I didn't know anything about the guy. Watched a few episodes and I was like, man, I'm fascinated by real estate. So I think after that, I bought my books. I was the quickest person to ever get through the course. I was licensed in 28 days. Started immediately with a brokerage called Hallmark Realty. Got off to a good start. Worked, and this isn't to come across in an arrogant way with the hours and stuff, but to this day, pretty much 16 hours a day. It's all I do. I love it. So I started there, got off to a great start. In 2015, I really liked the independent model, and our company got bought out by a large franchise. And some of the agents didn't like that. I personally didn't like it. So I was thinking about it on my own. So I formed Boys Group in 2015. I left with about 8 agents. Also that year, and just talking about a bit of the risk with the business, I'd seen some of these other companies who were still leasing spaces, 20, 30 years later. So we bought a building for about 1.3 million. And I took it all, I guess, on my back. I personally guaranteed pretty much everything you could imagine to buy the building because our company, of course, starting from nothing, had no income. Fast forward to now, we own 7 buildings. We have an office here, Regina, Battleford, working on being licensed in Calgary at the moment. Team of about 100 agents, 5 full-time staff. We have bookkeeper, everything else, like any company to keep it running. And so I guess what my day looks like, which is what I think I love about this the most. If you're going to ask me what I'm doing tomorrow, I probably have no idea. A lot of days start, calendar's empty, by noon it's full. So I do still sell full time, and I have a team with my brother. So between managing our listings, dealing with our buyers, majority of my time is within the office and running the brokerage. So with the real estate office side of things, there's multiple levels of, I guess, not that scrutiny, but compliance and stuff. So I deal with a lot of audits, a lot of lawsuits, unfortunately, complaints, good, bad, everything, financials, everything you can name is a part of my day. I, again, in general, don't know what the day is going to look like a lot of the time, but that's what I love. Typically, I'm up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock, in my office by 6, and I'm off in here till 7 or 8 at night, and then I do it over again. So doing it 12 years now, and in 12 years, other than and I'm not saying this is a good thing, it's just I am that passionate about what I do and wanting to grow the company. I have left the city for a total of 2 weeks, once for my brother's wedding, and I went to Dominican just last month. So that is it for me for holidays. Many challenges we've had, and a lot of stuff, and I'm sure Aimee has gone through this as well, that you just don't know when you're running your own business and an entrepreneur of what can and can't happen. So we went through a period where in 2017, I believe, we weren't as staffed as we were now. I had 2 staff and a bookkeeper, and this is going to sound like I'm making it up. They all quit on one day with no notice. Had some personal things going on, another one, this, that, they all quit. I had to spend 2 entire days at the office. I worked 22 hours a day, slept at the office for like 2 hours, and it kept going. And not that you want to do that, but that's just sometimes what you're going to have to do when you're starting out and wanting to make a business succeed. So I guess I've learned that I'm always going to be learning, would be the one thing. Is you never know what's going to come. You could try predict the future best you can, but through this journey and running a business and staff and everything else, you're going to get thrown so many curveballs. So I've just learned that basically to take it in stride. And I kind of look at my job more now so as just a firefighter. You know, there's going to be stuff going wrong every day, every week, every month. My agents are going to go through trouble. My staff is going to go through trouble, and I'm going to be here to support them best I can and keep moving ahead. So I guess, yeah, that is my journey to where we are now, and a little bit of what I've experienced so far. Very competitive industry for recruiting and agents and trying to maintain them. So yeah, that is kind of how I got to be where I am and where we're headed. And I don't know if those questions were from me or if those were before.
I think they may have been in there before, but we can address them. Both you and Aimee can address them when we answer some questions later on. But I did have a question for you myself. So this event is for high school students. So what advice would you give a student who is in high school and they know, I want to be a real estate agent? Is there, I know there's the real estate training that you go through, but is there any other type of training you would suggest for them to take? Is this something that a student should go into right out of high school, or what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, so a couple different parts to that. And that's a good question because it brings up something I forgot to say. I wanted to start when I was 19. I met with 2 different brokerages and they both told me I was too young. They're not going to take you serious. That's why I went into poker, actually. I forgot that part. I shouldn't have listened. Now, right out of high school, can it be done? Yes. There are a couple agents in the city that are still doing it. And I know for a fact started when they were 18. It is challenging at that age. It's more so not that you can't have the knowledge or the training. It's being taken, I guess, on a more serious and maturity level for some when dealing with who knows what type of investment, but $5-6 million house, trusting somebody at that age. I'm not saying that can't be done. I'm not saying the objection can't be handled. It's just that is what you're going to face. It's just a fact. They're going to judge you whether it's fair or not. In terms of the education, it's drastically changed since I started. You used to just have to take what you wanted to specialize in. Now you have to take introduction to real estate, residential, commercial, and farm. Whether you just want to sell houses or not, you have to take every course. Total cost to do that all is, and license with the boards and everything, going to cost you about $7,000. So it's good though. Yeah, I mean, there's an 80% failure rate. 8 out of 10 agents that start don't make it past year 2. And like, I'm going to tell the good and the bad, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
No, for sure. That's what we're here for.
Probably 20% of the agents are controlling 80 to 90% of the business in the city. You have a lot of agents doing 5-6 deals a year, lots doing 15 to 20, which is a decent living. And then there's 10 to 20 or 30 of us that are doing 100 to 200. Wow. So totally depends, but yeah, it can be done at a young age. It will be challenging. In terms of training ahead of time, this is really a job where you take the course, you more learn the regulations, but you got to learn it kind of in the trenches. The way people talk, the way things are done is just not how the course teaches you.
It's like a lot of education. You learn more on the job than you do actually sitting in a desk, but
Yes.
Sometimes you got to do what you have to do to get to the end goal. But thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Thank you for being very real with us and letting students really know the good and the bad. On a side note, you said you were from Kelvington. We all laughed in here because we all know where Kelvington is. My father grew up in Porcupine Plains, Saskatchewan.
Oh yeah, right by our lake, Greenwater.
Yeah, right by Greenwater. So, but thank you so much. And once again, I know there was a couple questions in the Q&A about owning a business. We will have some time after our next two speakers to address those questions. So if anyone does have questions for Jordan or any of our other speakers, be sure to pop those in the Q&A. And we are going to move on to our next panelist. So Christine Marie is a Filipino Indigenous mom of two and launched Awasis Boutique in February 2018 as an online shop. Oasis means child in Cree. It was the first Indigenous-inspired baby and kid fashion shop in Western Canada. After seeing a gap of Indigenous-inspired clothing for babies and kids on the market in Canada, she set out to fill this gap, to not only provide little ones with fashion pieces that connect them with their language and culture, but also to educate others about the Indigenous culture. Christine started off with sewing baby drool bibs, aprons, and blankets, along with a selection of onesies and toddler tees featuring phrases in Cree and English languages. She has since expanded her product selection with pieces for the entire family to keep up with the demand. Christine is passionate about making an impact beyond the business sector. To be able to do her part at revitalizing the Indigenous language, which was lost, be intentional about educating others about the culture, give back to organizations that support all things babies and families, and act on the calls of reconciliation by engaging in relationships and business partnerships with non-Indigenous people, as well as giving proceeds back to organizations that are related to all things babies and their families. Oasis Boutique would not have grown like this over the last few years without the incredible support of customers, suppliers, and collaboration. Although she's the face behind the brand, Christine gives credit to the village who has joined her for the ride. So please welcome Christine.
Hello, good morning, or I guess good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. So I guess I'm gonna just go right back to when I was in high school, and my one home ec teacher, she was incredible. She asked me like, okay, so you're going to graduate, what are you gonna do with your life? And I was determined that I was going to become a pop singer. Like that was the goal. And then time went on and Justin Bieber came to the scene, and it was too late. I had to choose something else. So, but no, in all seriousness, she did ask me that question, and I thought, well, I don't know, I'll just work and just go from there, you know? And she said, well, what about post-secondary? Nobody in my immediate family had ever gone to post-secondary, so that wasn't an option in my mind. You know, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't good enough, like it was just, you just don't do that. But thankfully, you know, that sort of planted the seed inside of my head, and I looked more into it. And I did end up going to the University of Saskatchewan and successfully graduated through their incredible SunTech program. And I became a teacher. I taught for a few years, loved it, absolutely loved it. I loved working with high school kids. They were just so much fun. And I did that for a few years, and I taught home ec and Native studies. Those were my main areas of teaching. And then it was ready to start my own family. So I took a pause, I had two sweet little boys, stayed home with them for 5 years. And then the time came for me to think about going back to work again. But I wasn't quite ready to jump in full time. I sort of just wanted to take these baby steps. And so that's where the idea came from with Awasis Boutique was, okay, I taught home ec, so I know, you know, the basics of sewing and you know, design, and I've taught Native studies. So why don't I put the two together and create a business out of it? And so that's how it started. I started finding some prints that had, you know, maybe feathers on them, just certain aspects that, you know, maybe reflected the Indigenous culture. And like Michelle had said, started off with bibs and blankets, and then there was an interest. People within the community were really wanting to get them. So I thought, okay, well, let's, grow some more, and started doing a bunch of onesies. And within my first year of business, there were 12 local retailers, I guess within Canada, not just Saskatchewan, that wanted to stock some of my product. And I was just floored. I was making everything in my home at the time, and I had a press, and I was pressing everything. My first big order, which was 100 onesies. And I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this done? But you know what? You figure out a way. I loved what I was doing. And so you just figure out a way to get it done. And as I mentioned, I had my 2 kiddos with me, and at the time, my oldest wasn't in school yet. So I had to work when they were napping, when they went to sleep at night. So there were a lot of late nights at the beginning, but it was just how I had to roll with it. It worked for me and my family at the time. Let's see, one of the other questions you had was like a day in the life, I guess. Now, because now it's been a couple of years, it's grown so much, as she also said, is offering products for the entire family. And now I don't do everything myself. So I've been able to connect with incredible people within our community, other suppliers, to help keep up with the demand, because I was not able to do so. And the beauty of having an online business is it's people shop, they click, and you see that order, you wrap it, you ship it out. So the cost is one thing that a person can keep down if you're thinking of going that route, and maybe trying something out, you're not sure, how it's going to go. That's one way to start off and just kind of test out the market. I did start off with $3,000. I thought, you know what, this is what I'll see if I can grow this. And 4 years later, that went over well. So, when somebody asks, like, did you need a lot of money? Start with a little bit and then see if you can grow it from there. There are some wonderful organizations too that will offer, support or loans and stuff like that. So we're very fortunate to have those supports, but I didn't tap into those just yet. Maybe one day, but for now, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Going back to what it's like now that both of my kids are in school, one is part-time. So, similar to Jordan, every week is different because I've got baby products, and then I've got adult products, and then I also do collaborations with organizations if they want a logo designed, or maybe they want some apparel designed. I will collaborate with them and help come up with designs. So it's a lot of fun, but every week is so different. And some of the challenges, definitely balance, because it's sort of that, it's you want to grow, and you want to keep those connections going, but then you also don't want to burn out, and you want to make sure you're there for your family and your friends. So it's sort of this juggling act, but I really do try to have certain hours when I am with my kids to be present with my kids. And so does that mean that I am still working later evenings? And sometimes, when I have solo days, yeah, that's when I go all in and try to get as much done so that I can still be available as a mom. So I think that's super important. I think that covers the questions that you had asked, but yeah, I guess kind of going back to even what Steph was talking about at the beginning, the beauty of running this kind of business is that each piece tells a story, and not only for the individuals that it resonates with, like myself growing up as an Indigenous person, and I didn't see these kinds of pieces out and about. I didn't know some of these words before, but now these little ones can grow up with that, and there's just nothing like being able to help fill that gap. And then also on the other side, educating others about the beauty of the culture and just walking in those steps of reconciliation is also a big thing about my business. So yeah, that's everything in a nutshell.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story with all of the students. And I know that the pieces you create are beautiful, but also the meaning behind it, I think, is so important in our community as well. And you'd mentioned how you wanted to be a pop singer, and
Yes.
that may not have played out, but I do follow you on Instagram, and you were quite the dancer. So I'm going to give a shout out to all of our presenters. Give their businesses a follow on social media. They all have a great presence. You can watch Christine dance all the time, and also check out her beautiful pieces. And I know Aimee, I follow both of her businesses on social media. It can be a little bit dangerous if you're trying to curb your shopping habits, but I do encourage anyone who is joining us today to give a follow to our presenters. So we have one last presenter before we get into our final Q&A. So Patti Glowa has been with Saskatoon Co-op since August 2019 as the Director of Human Resources, and worked with Federated Co-op Limited for 20 plus years prior, where she has held a number of different roles with human resources, which she will tell us more about today. Prior to joining the cooperative retailing system, or co-op, Patti worked in the not-for-profit sector in government-sponsored programming and with private insurance, assisting employees back to work after injury or dealing with a disability. She received her post-secondary education at both the University of Saskatchewan and SIAS, now known as Sask Polytechnic. Patti grew up in Choiceland, Saskatchewan, in the northeast part of the province. She lived in a few places prior to settling in Saskatoon, where she and her husband, Jerry, live, work, and play. Jerry and Patti have 2 daughters living at home with them, both in university. And Patti is kept busy with many activities and family events and reestablishing connections with friends. And recently, she's been introduced to a couple new hobbies, alcohol ink painting and fuse glass, and is loving them both. So please welcome Patti.
Thank you. And it's always a bit of a challenge and also a pleasure to be the last speaker. Everyone's stories have been really intriguing. And even though I can relate to some, mine is very different in some ways. So when most people hear that I work at the co-op, automatically they're going, oh, do you work at the gas station or the grocery store? And I can say neither. They often will ask, like, are you a cashier or do you pump gas or what do you do? Neither. And so it's really important for me to have, especially younger people, understand the business piece behind what you sometimes see as front-facing. So Saskatoon Co-op has a pretty big presence in Saskatoon and some of the surrounding communities. Saskatoon stores are in Saskatoon, Martensville, Warman, Watrous, Colonze, Hepburn, Waldheim, Dalmeny, and Rostron. And for those of you who have shared that you're living outside of Saskatoon or grew up outside of Saskatoon, there's co-ops all over Saskatchewan. So Saskatoon Co-op primarily has 38 different locations, and we operate business in the areas of food stores, gas bars, liquor stores, pharmacy, agro sites, bulk petroleum, and there's a few other things as well. What I really want our viewers and the audience today to take away is that when you operate a business like that, there's a lot of other roles and jobs that go along with supporting that business. We laugh about it here. It's basically providing support to the business of doing business. There's lots of leadership roles. There's lots of technical and specialty roles. You know, if we think about accounting or finance, handling the credit, the marketing and communications roles, there's asset protection to make sure that, you know, we're providing a safe workplace for our employees, but also for our customers to be shopping at. There's health and safety and maintenance of our facilities. We actually rent out some of our physical locations. So we've got a real estate section to our business. And of course, the area of work that I'm in is human resources. So I'm the Director of Human Resources at Saskatoon Co-op. I have a team of 12 here, and we provide support to the management or the team leaders who are responsible to take care of their team members in both a unionized and non-unionized work environment. So, of course, why do we hire people? Well, we hire people, any business hires people to get the work done and to achieve the results. And my team supports that full cycle human resource pieces, like what does an employee need from the time that they get hired, and if they choose to stay with us for their entire career, right up until the time that they retire. So my team provides for the organization, and Saskatoon Co-op has 1,250 employees. My team provides the recruitment services for all those positions. We fill approximately 400 positions per year. Once team members are hired, my team is onboarding and ensuring that they're receiving the appropriate training to do the work that they're hired to do. And of course, you know what, when team members get hired and people work for a company, they want to get paid. So my team also consists of the payroll team to make sure that we are processing payroll timely and accurately, and our team members are receiving the benefits, of course, that they're requiring. So that's health benefits, pension benefits, and those types of things. So once a team member is hired, you have, and we, like any other company, the manager's role is really then to state expectations, ensure that team members know what's expected of them to perform the work, to train them, to coach them, to guide them. And it's my team who are helping the managers do that and carry out their work. So there's training and development that goes along with that, and even advancements. So some of our team members are really interested in joining the organization and growing their career within the organization. And so there's many opportunities for development, succession planning. We have to think ahead and be proactive to make sure that when, you know, some of our key and critical roles in the organizations become vacant for whatever reason, that we have a talent pool ready to go and take on those roles. So I think that my team has a very exciting job. And of course, my job is to provide direction and guidance and make sure that we're getting done what we need to get done. So when I liken my job basically to an air traffic controller, because I'm not the person doing all of the frontline work and guiding and coaching the team leaders, but I'm certainly working with senior leadership to understand the vision and the needs of the business, and then ensuring that my team are prepared and equipped to deliver on that service for their team leaders and the team members of the organization. And of course, one of the big things that has been we've been involved in recently, because it's top of mind, is the whole COVID-19 and pandemic. And so we've had a critical role in making sure that our team members are cared for, that we do have preventative measures in place, and that when and if someone does get sick with COVID, that we have the ample benefits and sick time in place, and that they're taken care of while they're isolating and getting healthy before they can return to work. So I've been with Co-op for over 20 years. I've had 8 permanent types of roles and multiple opportunities in being assigned to various temporary projects. And I've been able to work in all areas of human resources, as I just talked about with what my team does. But the one thing that I didn't expect when I joined human resources and it became my career is the fact that I would learn so much about the business. So I worked alongside many business counterparts in the various areas, because at Federated Co-op, no 2 days are the same, especially when you work in HR, because of the various lines of business. There's 12 lines of business, and there's different types of project work that I was exposed to. And I think the other thing that's really interesting is that even though I work at Saskatoon Co-op now, Saskatoon Co-op is part of the larger cooperative retailing system. FCL, or Federated Co-op, is that wholesaling arm that provides the professional services to retail co-ops. So while I was there, I had a lot of exposure to being able to provide support to co-ops across Western Canada. And I first started, my first job with Federated Co-op was that of a training officer. It was a great job. I traveled around from town to town, large urban locations and small centers, and, you know, training from the church basement and the curling rink lunchroom right up to, you know, Calgary, Edmonton, lovely locations in British Columbia, to do training with our frontline team members, with our management teams, and with our board of directors. It was a wonderful way to get oriented to the co-op system and the business. We still laugh about, you know, what's the greatest thing that I learned in my career? Well, one of the things that I never expected to learn that I've learned is the government requirements around what substantiates regular ground beef to lean ground beef and extra lean ground beef. And as ridiculous as that sounds, probably learned it in my first year of employment with Federated Co-op, still take it with me today. And it's something that, you know, as a consumer now matters to me. But for me, I joined and decided that I wanted to have a career in human resources without truly understanding all of the opportunities that would be there. One of the things that for me was so important is I wanted to work with people. I liked working with people, and I thought, great, you know, human resources is a place to do that. One of the things that nobody really told me, and I learned through experience, is that working in human resources, you see the good, the bad, and the ugly, because you're working with people in all sorts of situations, and people have all sorts of challenges, and employers have all sorts of needs. But I think for me, it's been really rewarding to be able to ensure that we create an environment for our team members where they can come to work, enjoy coming to work and doing their best, regardless of the situations that they're working through. And that, I think, the evolution of an employer's responsibility, and certainly within co-op, is that we have to take care of the whole person. So it's not just about coming to work, doing your job, but if something is going on that's affecting you or preventing you from doing that, then we have some supports in place to help. So I think that's really, for me, a very fulfilling part of my role. As I said, I worked in the co-op system for 20 years, and I really grew up and had an opportunity to follow my career path and to really build on layers of responsibility and getting exposure to different roles, building my own acumen. You know, as I said, I started off as a training officer. I then became a human resource generalist. I was in charge then for recruitment for a particular region, the Saskatoon region, or part of Saskatchewan, in terms of making sure that we had people in the right places at the right time. Then I took on a portfolio for learning and development, and it was for the entire cooperative retailing system. So that's very exciting when you have that opportunity to make that kind of an impact in our local co-ops, and to be able to really make a difference for people in their work and in their careers. That was, you know, a great opportunity for me. And then I took on, we had a new CEO who joined Federated Co-op, and there was a time of transformational change. It was huge. I took on a new portfolio at that time where I was held my first director role of HR strategies, and we were revamping all of our people practices to modernize them, to make them more relevant. And I learned a great deal, and really was honored to be able to learn and grow and develop and to provide value to our organization. And then held a couple other roles at Federated prior to joining Saskatoon Co-op. So for me, I don't really have 2 days that are the same. What I have learned is that because I love variety, because I love the flexibility and freedom and opportunity to try on new things and to do meaningful work and really make a difference both to the people in our organization and I think to the community, I have really enjoyed my career and been very fortunate to have the majority of my career be at Saskatoon Co-op. You know, when I think about this presentation and what I can pass on, I think that for me, there's been 3 big lessons along my career. And I hope that everyone can take this away to say that every experience you have is meaningful and contributes to your career. The skills that you have can transfer, and retail is a wonderful way to gain some of those very valuable skills. So is the hospitality industry. Today, even when we're hiring our management positions, we get quite excited when we see people who've had that experience with the public, especially in a service environment where they're offering that service. There's so many transferable skills that you can take into your entire career that are meaningful and helpful for you. Because it's not just about what a person does, it's how they do it and that higher purpose that they have that goes along with their job. My second greatest learning is it's okay to ask questions. In fact, that's probably one of the best things you can do. No one expects you to know it all. No one expects you to step into a new role and just hit the ground running. In fact, that can cause some worry. So ask questions, learn from the people around you, pay attention to what you want, how you want to work, who you want to emulate, and take that into your own practice. and finally look beyond the surface. You know, specifically when you think about co-op, and as I started off my presentation saying, when people hear that I work at co-op, they think I'm at a gas bar or a food store. There's so much more that goes on behind the scenes to be able to operate a business. And sometimes we write things off without actually truly understanding the potential of what there could be for a career. So I would always say, you know, if you have that ability to say, oh, this is a really interesting store, this is a really interesting business, what other types of work goes along to support those bricks and mortars or their online presence? I've been very fortunate, as I said, to have worked in the many roles that I've worked in and had the opportunities I've worked or I've had and the people I've worked with. But for me, one of the things I think that is really super important is the connection with the purpose of the business and the values of the business that I work for. Co-op is a different kind of business. It's truly local. It supports our community that we're in. We provide careers to local people. The profits stay in the community. And it really is people-centered. So I chose my HR career because I loved working with people. And I didn't realize how much I would need to learn about the business in order to be effective, but I have. So for me, it's really the best of both worlds, where I'm working and impacting with people, but also really learning about business and how to run and operate a business and the multifaceted pieces that go along with that to make the experience seem flawless on the front end. Thank you.
Thank you, Patti. As I had mentioned, I'm scribbling things down on my paper, and you said so many fantastic things that I wanted to make note of, and now I can't keep track of everything I wrote. I know that one of the last things you said, though, is about working for a company that really supports your values. And I think that that's something that we sometimes don't consider when we're looking for employment. We're like, oh, I just want a job. I'll work wherever. But it really you need to find somewhere that does match your values, and it's something that you care about and they also care about that. And I think co-op really is important in our community, and you can tell from the passion you have for your job that it's represented in your values as well. I had a good chuckle about your ground beef. I was also a former home ec teacher, so I may pick your brain about that. I would love to know that information. And also just talking about all aspects of business. This is our spotlight on business. And I know last year we also hosted a virtual spotlight with COVID, and we highlighted different areas of business. But this year we really wanted to focus on that variety. So having someone from tourism, having entrepreneurs or real estate agent, and also having you highlight all of those areas of business that go, or all of those opportunities that there are in the business sector. And so thank you for sharing that with us today. So I don't want to keep everyone too much longer. We do have a few questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to invite our panelists to quickly come back and join us, and we'll answer some of those questions for our viewers, and then I have a few closing remarks, and we'll get everyone going on with their day. So the first question was, what is the hardest part of owning a business? And I'm going to pass this on to Aimee first, but any of our entrepreneurs are able to answer as well. But I know that question was put in the Q&A when she was speaking. So if she wants to answer that.
Well, I think actually it's kind of a good question to follow up Patti, and just saying like what she does and how she supports so many different aspects of the business, and how there's such a kind of a grand team that kind of create it. And I think when you are an entrepreneur, you kind of have to do all of those things yourself in the beginning, especially when you're building. You can't really kind of afford to outsource everything. And so there's definitely things that like you're not knowledgeable on. There's things that it takes you much longer to do and sort of learn and be good at, and then sort of like growing within those positions. And so definitely asking for help and finding all of those different things, because owning, like for retail, like what I do, obviously I get to buy pretty clothes, I get to sell pretty clothes, and I get to put that on Instagram, and those are the fun things. But I also have to do my own payroll, my own HR, training of staff, hiring of staff, you know, following all of the COVID protocols that we have. Like, I have to sit down and be like, okay, what is the next step? How do we go forward with this? And there's a whole bunch of things that kind of continually come at you all of the time. And Jordan had said as well, like, no 2 days are the same. So you don't go into work being 100% prepared and this is how my day is going to play out and it's 9 to 5. Sometimes it's a 22-hour day and you don't know that getting there. And just, I think, sort of kind of being able to like fly by the seat of your pants and take each new day and all of those new lessons and sort of go through these days and balance is another hard one that was touched on too, kind of owning your own business. They are long days, there are hard days, and you don't really kind of know what you're going to get each and every day.
Thank you, Aimee. Christine, did you have anything you wanted to add about your challenges with owning your own business? I know you'd mentioned some of them and you talked about balance as well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, those are some great points there too. And then also just the art of letting go. So, you know, especially, yeah, at first you are learning all this new, and some things you're going to be really good at and some things you're just going to bomb. And that's okay. I think that's just that eye opener of, okay, who can I bring on my team or who can I reach out to that can help me with this? And that's totally okay to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And our second question we had was it financially hard to start up the business or start up your business? And I know Jordan had talked a little bit about how he had taken on a lot of risk on his own in order to make his business happen. And I know, Christine, you kind of set your limit. Is there anything that anyone wants to add to that? Aimee, I know that kind of came out of nowhere for someone, the idea of buying your own bridal boutique. So how did you make that happen so quickly?
Saskatchewan is a really awesome place to be an entrepreneur, to be honest with you. I feel like we have a lot of supports in place. There's some really good, like BDC, for example, is a bank that is business development. That is what they do, and that they help. I think for me, it was a lot of groundwork. I had no ability to support myself in it. I didn't have the finances to put forward, and it took a lot of applying for grants, applying for loans, doing the research on what I could access and what was available to me. And so it was a lot of legwork, but it is there, I think, and that's nice that we have that in our province. There's the Women Entrepreneur that helped. I mean, there's lots of different avenues, but it does take a little bit of legwork and a little bit of groundwork to sort of do it on your own. And it definitely is terrifying, because I mean, you put up everything, like everything goes into it. And if you don't make it work, it's like, what's my next step? Like I've everything I have is in this business, and this is my only form of income, and everything I have is in this. So it's like, if it doesn't work, how does food get on my table tomorrow?
Well, I need to give all of you so much credit, because one thing that I am not is a risk taker. So even just you guys telling your stories, like you've all experienced success now, but it was giving me anxiety just hearing about some of the things that you guys risked to have your business become a success. And so the last question, which I'm going to address toward Jordan, is what is something you wish you would have known when starting a business?
For me, there are many things, but the one main thing that I heard it probably within the last couple of years, but it really resonated with me now, is learn to become your own biggest fan. For whatever reason, and I do feel the world and everybody, it's getting better, but for whatever reason, going out, starting your own business, for some reason, people are waiting for you to fail. They're watching for you to collapse, whether it's fear of going out on their own, it's something they want to do and they can't take the leap. So I would say get used to being your own biggest fan. You're going to spend a lot of time with yourself and a lot of time doing things with no support off the start. So just enjoy the journey, and I don't know, keep your head down. And I'm my own biggest fan now because it all falls on me. So I just got used to that.
All right, would any of our other panelists like to give any last closing words of advice? Something you wish you would have known when starting your business?
I think just give yourself grace too, you know, because it can be so much at once. And especially if it is a lot of new, it's not going to go smoothly. And, you know, we can be our worst critics. And like he said, that you're with yourself a lot of the time. So just give yourself grace. Tomorrow's another day and you get to try it again.
All right, so I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our panelists once again for joining us, for sharing their stories with us and answering the questions that our participants had. So thank you so much for taking the time and being here. It was much appreciated. I also want to thank our partner school divisions, Greater Saskatoon Catholic Schools, Saskatoon Public Schools, Prairie Spirit School Division, and the Saskatoon Tribal Council, who support us in all of our events. I want to thank the teachers from across the province who joined our event today. Thank you for taking time with your classes to be part of this event. And I want to thank my colleagues who help make events like these happen. And finally, thank you to everyone for tuning in and participating in our event. The questions are always what helps guide us, and we're happy that you're here. We're happy that you're asking questions, and we hope you're able to participate in some future events as well. So before everyone signs off, I do want to encourage you students, give us your feedback. Let us know what you thought about our event. Let us know what you enjoyed, if there's things that we could do different in the future. Unfortunately, we're probably going to be sitting behind these computer screens for the next couple of months anyways, with our virtual events. So give us some feedback. Also, the feedback doesn't take very long, but when you do provide us with feedback, we love to give out prizes, so you have the opportunity to win a gift card. So I'll leave that up for another second or two. So if anyone wants to take out their phone and give it a scan. And then teachers, we also want to hear from you. If you did tune in with your class, let us know what you thought about our event today. Like I said, we're going to be doing more of these events moving forward, and hopefully one day we can all be back in person again, but that isn't the reality right now. So let us know what you thought. Let us know what we can improve on. And once again, you could win a gift card. And if you are really interested in a career in business or finance, be sure to check out our website, where we have lots of different resources available. This event is recorded and will be on our website, and all of our live events we record them and put them on our website for students to access later. So be sure to check out our past resources. We also have our Spotlight on Business and Finance, where we talk to different experts in the finance field. So if you're interested in business, but you're more of a numbers person, maybe you want to check out some of those resources. And then we also have our post-secondary video series. So that's where we speak with different post-secondary facilities around our province about the programs that they have to offer. And they let students know how to apply for the programs, what a day in the life of a student looks like, any words of advice for potential students. So check out our website and access those resources. And maybe today you listened to our panel and you realize that business isn't the career for you. Each month we highlight a different sector. And so we've already highlighted 3 different sectors in the beginning of the school year. And each month we'll look at, coming forward, we'll look at some other sectors. So next month we're going to be looking at emergency and public services. So if you're interested in a career in that area, be sure to check out our website to register for those events, and also visit our website and follow us on social media to stay up to date. So here's our socials if you want to give us a follow. Also, one more reminder, give our presenters today, give their businesses a follow, share their posts. I know that that would mean a lot to them as well. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again.